I remember damage. That's the opening line of a TV series that I was pretty sure I didn't want to see. The story of a pandemic and what humans do when history itself is wiped away. The answer is as simple as it is heartbreaking. We do what we do. We dance, we sing, we tell stories. We travel across the earth in roving bands and perform Shakespeare. And that's the premise of the show, Station 11. Anybody see that show? It's a great book, too, yeah. The story is kind of hard. There's so many broken people, broken stories, so much loss, and yet. And yet, there we were, still living, still caring for each other, still telling stories, believing that stories mattered, that stories could save us. Stories told among the glass and the grass, between the relics and the ruins, the tellers still vibrant, still soft, strong, and seeking connection and meaning, still doing the job of living there at the end of all things. Now, I think about this show on and off, and I think that's probably a good testament. But it occurs to me that the story of hope is an easy one to tell dishonestly. You pull up your Netflix or Comcast menu and you're going to be inundated, just overwhelmed with stories about saviors and soldiers and superheroes who, against all odds, save the day. Good triumphs over evil, love wins, everyone lives happily ever after. These stories are good, they're fun, they're helpful, they're encouraging, and especially now that's important. These stories serve a purpose, but they're also a lie, because we know the real world doesn't really work this way, because the real world can be terrifying. And I know this because I remember damage too. I'll come back to this in a moment, but before I wander too far, I want to acknowledge that today is also Father's Day, and that, yes, I have children, 2 in fact. My children are amazing and perfect and wonderful in all ways. And yes, they paid me to say that. When they were born, my whole life changed. The fact that I am a father, that I got to be a father, is now part of me, as indelible as my sense of humor or my love of popular cinema, both of which inform this morning's sermon. Being a parent is a privilege, and I understand that this is a decision not everyone gets to make, and that some choose not to make, and I understand that. But I hope you'll forgive me when I say that I'm not using the word lightly when I say that I feel lucky and blessed to be called a dad. It's mind-boggling, because if my kids knew half the things about me that my parents and siblings know about me, well, let's just say our relationship would be rather different than it currently is. I am the father of twins, and what that means to most of you is that I do not have clear memories of some portion of my life. I also have no idea exactly how long this period lasted. I'm somewhat comforted by the fact that some soldiers call this the fog of war. Good times, probably. Honestly, I have no idea. Now, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the invention of Father's Day dates back to 1909 and is credited to Sonora Dodd of Spokane, Washington. Ms. Dodd apparently suggested the idea after hearing a Mother's Day sermon at her local church, and she thought that the single dad who raised her and her 4 siblings deserved a bit of a shout out. Now, the obvious brilliance of this idea. All right. These are the jokes, people. It doesn't get better than this, right? Now, the idea spread. In 1972 is when the president signed this into declaration, making this a nationally recognized holiday. I am told, however, that the original proposed legislation included some suggested language around grilling and beer, but I have not been able to confirm that. All right. This is what happens when you reprint something. I've got a chunk missing, that's fine. Some of you have kids, many of you have parents, most of you have pets. What you have, or maybe what you're hoped for, are relationships with others. And anyone that has made this kind of connection knows something fundamental. You've risked something, right? You have created an opportunity, but in that opportunity is risk, because that's what a relationship is. It's risk. There's something that you are taking that's valuable from you, and you are giving it to someone or something else. You invest it. You give it away. It's like a gift. And it is through that connection that you learn to grow and celebrate, and you change and deepen, and all of that. It's great. It's part of that investment. But what Hallmark might miss when talking about these kinds of relationships is worry. Because, oh my sweet baby Jesus, do you worry? For me, this is perhaps the defining fact of my parenting life. I worry because, and you can tell this is true because I used to have long hair. Used to be black too. I don't know what happened. Now, so the worry can be a defining fact of life, right? And it informs your home life just as it informs your approach to public life. But I remember more than that, and I want to tell you a little bit about my sister. My baby sister started her family early and now has 3 kids. The first was the one that we all wrapped in bubble wrap. Nothing could be safe enough. Every scrape was examined by specialists from the Mayo Clinic. All dangerous activities were completely off limits. I think with number 2, she was probably exhausted, or she realized that her children were in fact made of Nerf, whatever works. I don't know, but I do know that number 2 was allowed to play football in high school. Kid number 3 was largely feral. And now she has more in common with her tornado than a human being. I'm kidding, she's great, but yes, terrifying. She's terrifying. Now, watching my sister taught me something about parenting, and not in the, quote, the meaning of your life is to serve as a warning to others type of sense. No, she taught me that even with worry, even knowing that worry was totally legitimate and appropriate and unavoidable in all facets of life, she taught me that it was still okay to hope. Now, hope is this weird, funny word. We use it all the time. For most of us, hope is something you have, right? Like a loaf of bread or a nap or a cast for a broken leg. We think of hope this way as something that's tenuous, temporary, transient, here and then gone. I have hope. Christians use this word regularly. It's part of the Holy Quartet, right? Faith, love, peace, and hope. Just like the Advent candles. Christianity teaches you to hope, to have an expectation, a desire for something to happen, for God or Christ or the Holy Spirit, for something outside of you to come to you, to help you, to change you, to deliver you from evil, to deliver you into life everlasting, to transport you into the peace that can only be found in the arms of a loving parent. Hope. Now, Miguel de la Torre, he's a professor at the Iliff School of Theology. It's a seminary in Boulder. He's also an embarrassingly prolific writer. He has a slightly different take on hope. He says that hope is too often a barrier, an obstacle. He suggests that if you are investing time and energy in hoping for help, for change, for deliverance. That means that you are not investing time and energy in actually doing the helping, changing, or delivering. Across history, De La Torre says, hoping means deferring. Hoping means giving up your personal agency and power in favor of someone else's agency and power. Hoping means accepting an oppression, accepting suffering, powerlessness, and doing that in the here and now. And you do it in return for some vague promise of a possible future award. This is religion written by oppressors. What we need to do, he says, is to give that up. Hope cannot be the rope that binds our hands. We need to give up hope. He has kind of a point, I think. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. As our DEI team reminds us, the story of Juneteenth is a celebration commemorating the day that the news of their freedom finally reached the last of those formerly enslaved. And yet, here we are, still debating Black Lives Matter. Here we are remembering Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, George Floyd, and so many others. And we're all now realizing, of course, that there are so many that have suffered for so long. I'm reminded that this is also Pride Month, a celebration commemorating an uprising at the Stonewall Inn in New York. Uprising, riot, rebellion, it really does depend on who you ask. But however you call it, this month is lifted up as a time to center the natural human rights of life, liberty, and happiness. Because apparently we humans still need to be reminded that human includes LGBTQ people also. And amid all of the rainbows and glitter and parades, we try and remember the graves of martyrs like Matthew Shepard and Harvey Milk, and all of the haunted places like Stonewall, the Pulse nightclub, and Club Q. And just to close the loop, I'm reminded that this Father's Day, like every Father's Day, that parenting is hard. Vanishingly few of us do it well, and I am not one of those lucky few. Fact is, parents screw up, say the wrong thing, look the wrong way at the wrong time. As a collection, we have failed to save, to support, to make safe, to make space. And I am reminded that there are almost 1 million youth that are homeless here in the United States, and that almost half of them are gay, lesbian, bi, trans, or queer. Juneteenth, Pride, Father's Day. There are joys and wins, yes, but there's also damage, because that is real life. Hope, for far too many, can seem almost cruel. Hope is not rewarded, and in the face of tragedy, loss, and heartbreak, it can sound alien, obtuse, or even foolish. And that is where hope punk comes in. Anybody heard of hope punk? Cool, something new today. The more you know. For the sake of this morning, let's say that there are 3 legs of the fantasy literary triangle, and that they are noble bright, grim dark, and hope punk. You probably know these terms, even if you don't necessarily have familiarity with them. Noble bright's probably the one that you know quickest, right? It's the story that celebrates the chosen one, the hero, the once and future king, the champion, the figure that saves the day, the superhero facing the big bad at the big battle, the fight against all odds, the happy ending. Love always wins. This is the Joseph Campbell hero cycle. Classic fantasy. King Arthur, Robin Hood, even the Harry Potter series, parts of the Lord of the Rings, and the entirety of the Gospel of John. That was for you, John. Yeah, this is the Savior story. Noble bright. Noble bright is where we get the cliche that says, it is always darkest just before the dawn. hope-filled. By contrast, grimdark would say, it is always darkest just before everything goes pitch black. It's hopeless, right? Hopeless. Violent, dystopian, cynical, amoral. Grimdark is part commentary and part spoof of Noble Bright. Everybody is flawed or bad or dishonorable. No one really wins. Entropy rules. Anyone watch Game of Thrones? Right? How about the HBO series Succession? Oof, ouch. That's grimdark. Noble Bright. What's that? 1980. Oh my God. Brave New World, right? Yeah. So Noble Bright on one hand, grimdark on the other. Now, in 2017, author Alexandra Rowland dropped an alternative into this odd little binary, an idea she called hope punk. Hope punk is defiant optimism. It specifically rejects the noble, bright, happy ever after type of ending, because any serious look at human history tells us that the struggle of liberation and progress may never be finished and probably cannot ever be finished. It says that even given our best shot, our maximum effort, our tireless commitment, we still may not defeat the forces of darkness, the systems of oppression, the agents of chaos and hate. Hope punk rejects grimdark, though. It rejects it and says that the road will probably be long and dark, but nevertheless, it is still worth the trip. Even if victory is impossible, the battle hopeless, the dawn something we never get to see, hope punk is gambling on humanity 100 times over and following love into extinction because good and beauty are worth fighting for. Any fans of Rogue One, a Star Wars story? Spoiler alert, everybody dies. It's been years, people. But that story is really kind of interesting, right? Everybody in that story has a role to play, and they do it like a baton passing in a relay race. And it's hard. It's a really hard story. I wish people were, different, but this is the story of struggle. Anybody here a fan of Doctor Who? Yeah, some of you. And then there's Station 11, of course. That's all hope punk type stories. Now, what I find fascinating is that threaded through these stories, this hope punk kind of thread, is the idea that individual action is almost always meaningless. Success or salvation, if any is on offer, comes through bonds and connections from the actions that we take together, even if all we're doing is holding hands in the dark. Even if, as Ram Dass once said, even if all we're doing is just walking each other home. I'm reminded of a Marvel movie, because this is that sermon. I'm reminded of a Marvel movie, The Age of Ultron. Anybody see Marvel movies? Come on now. All right, in this one scene, Iron Man, it's a superhero, Iron Man is angry that his great plan, his I know best plan to protect the world, has gone horribly wrong. Defensively, he demands to know how the other superheroes would have done it. Together is what Captain America tells him. Iron Man responds with, "We'll lose." And that's when Cap says quietly, "Then we'll do that together too." And that is hope punk. And that's the ethic I want to lift up today, this Father's Day, this Juneteenth, this Pride Month, this election season. Because, my friends, the truth is I have no idea how things will turn out. Like most parents, I hope my kids will grow up to be strong and healthy and happy. I have no idea how the struggle for Black Lives Matter will turn out. I hope the violence against our Black and brown family, friends, and neighbors ends. I have no idea how the struggle for human rights, for LGBTQ rights, and most specifically the current legal battles for trans rights. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I hope that love wins. I have no idea what's going to come next. I do know that I worry, and that sometimes that worry is paralyzing. I'm reminded of a scene in the movie The Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo confesses that he is deathly afraid and says to Gandalf, "I wish none of this had happened." And Gandalf replies, "So do I, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for you to decide. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given you." And that reminds me that I do know something I've read, something my sister taught me. I know that hope can also be an action. Marianne Dana, in her book, Hope, a User's Manual, recalls a quote from a colleague who said that hope is what we do. Dana writes, quote, "I love the double meaning, hope is what we do, in the sense of the business we're in, like writing and coaching is what I do. But even deeper is this. Hope is wrapped up in what we make real. Hope isn't what we think. Hope isn't what we feel. Hope isn't even what we imagine is possible. Hope is what we do in the face of suffering, pain, and injustice. Hope is what we do in the face of depression's dull weight or grief's sharp sting. Hope is what we do." My friends, the truth is, the challenges ahead of us, ahead of all of us, are real and numerous and serious, and we're going to need to face all of them. We're facing a sea of knives, and I'm worried. But I know that you are worth fighting for, your hopes and dreams, your family, your friends, your neighbors, human rights, the right to live, to love, to flourish, because mere survival was never enough. And together we will hope for a better outcome. And for me, now, today, hope means facing the daggers and the dragons and the dangers that are hiding in the dark. Hoping means that we will do this not knowing how it will turn out. We may not defeat them, but we will never not face them, because that is what we do. That's what hope does. And so today I want to close with these words by Samwise Gamgee, taken from Tolkien's The Two Towers. This is the middle book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The scene is towards the end. Our hope pilgrims are beaten down and clearly outmatched. So much has happened to them at this point, and even so, there's so much they have yet to do. Frodo says, "I can't do this anymore, Sam." And Sam says, "I know. By all rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer." Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't, because they were holding on to something. And what are we holding on to, Sam, Frodo says. That there is some good in the world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. May we and the stories that we choose to tell be so bold. Amen.
Visit us at uusg.org.